Well, yeah, certainly. I mean, it was our fault. We made a mistake. The spotter said it was clear. It wasn't clear, and, I didn't want to tear my car up, tear his car up either. I respect everybody, and I demand respect. And, I apologized to the guy when he came over the car, explained to him what happened, and then he took it to another level when he started calling me an idiot and whatever else. And I don't appreciate that. I'm not going to take it. I told him how I felt. I called him out. He didn't show. And so, I'm good with it if he's good with it, but I'm not going to be disrespected by no means.
Yeah, I guess I had a dinner date at Applebee's last night that I didn't find out until it was too late. It's a shame. Love their riblets and boneless wings, but...
All right, folks. Welcome back to Meet Me at Applebee's, your #1 unrefined motorsports podcast. It's Brian once again with Rob and Ashley. Folks, how we doing this week?
Alive. I'm very alive. How about you, True Love?
I'm here.
Present. Sweet. Roll call's done. How are you, Brian?
Yep.
I'm here. I'm alive, but I know someone else isn't.
No.
So
No. You already ruined the whole show, Brian.
Well,
Canceled.
well, it is true though. We lost a titan of in racing this past week. Parnelli Jones passed away. He was 90, so he definitely lived the fullest life imaginable, and then some. Won the 63 Indy 500. He won just about everything you could in a sprint car. Had some NASCAR wins. Could just drive fucking anything. Drove sports cars later on in his life. Became a car owner. Won some 500s with Al Unser. Just one of these guys that is definitely up there on the Mount Rushmore of American race car drivers for sure. But and the globals, we talk a lot about who the greatest of all time was, and Parnelli is certainly one of the guys you need to have in that conversation for it to be valid. And I think it's a damn shame that Mario Andretti is still around and very involved in IndyCar and Formula One. You see him all the time, as is AJ Foyt. Two of Parnelli's contemporaries. But you don't really hear his name as much, even though he is definitely on par with those guys and was as big a star and a talent as them. So hopefully in passing, his memory sort of gains a little bit more traction, and that name gets thrown around a little bit more outside of just the usual IndyCar and sprint car nerd circles. But again, full life, 90 years old, dude did just about everything you could possibly do in a race car, and we raise our beers to him tonight. We're going to miss Parnelli.
I have enjoyed seeing all the pictures everyone shared of him the past couple days, because he also looked like a badass too. He's got great style in all the pictures.
Yeah, so Parnelli wasn't his birth name either. His middle name is Parnell, and he had a crush on a girl named Nellie, apparently, at his high school or whatever. And when he was starting to race, he didn't want to use his real name because he would get caught and that would get passed around. So his buddy came up with the name Parnelli because it sounded like a cool race car driver name, but it was also his crush's name mixed in there, and it stuck. And yeah, now Parnelli's a name. So
That's wild.
But yeah, they did it differently back in those days for sure. But yeah, they don't make him like Parnelli anymore. You say that about a lot of people, but that's certainly true of him. And like I said, we'll try and keep that flame alive here. But yeah.
Did Brian quit the show?
He did. I thought we were just having a nice moment of silence there, but apparently Brian...
I did too. I was like, okay.
I'm like, nice. But there was a lot of racing this weekend for sure. Of course, NASCAR was in a Gateway. That's actually in Illinois, right?
Technically, yeah.
Technically in Illinois. Spiritually, it's St. Louis, but yeah. Yeah, it was a fun weekend. I didn't watch much of the NASCAR stuff this weekend. They were in Portland too. The Xfinity Series was up in Oregon. I didn't watch either of those races, but
Saturday's schedule got kind of screwed up a little bit with they ended up running both the trucks and Xfinity pretty much at the same time, which made it tough to pay attention to both, I guess, depending on what you're.
How do you show two races on Fox Sports 2 at once?
Yeah, I don't get Fox Sports 2, so, and plus I wanted to watch SVG race on a road course, so
yeah, which he won.
I made my choice.
Brought one of his famous full track burnouts, which I still have not seen the highlight of, but I've seen them before, and they are certainly badass.
It was
amazing.
Sick. Like it was. I only watched probably the last 15 if that. But you know, he had a nice little battle with Justin Allgaier, but it wasn't much of a battle. You know, and yeah, literally within like 500 feet across the start-finish line, he starts doing donuts immediately while cars are still on the track.
Yeah.
And then goes and does, like Rob said, a full track burnout, but not just a burn, like drifting through every single fucking corner, which was so sick, and you know, burn the tires off the car. Definitely one of the best victory laps I've ever seen, I think.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
I haven't even seen it, and I can tell you it was.
It was badass. The trucks, I caught a little bit of, and fine from what I saw, like, but Oriheim won again, which,
yeah,
and it was, the only I would say my biggest takeaway from the trucks was Stuart Friesen airing turns 3 and 4 to the Syracuse Mile, which I know both myself and Todd Bodine were very excited to hear that, but I don't know how many other people. I love that.
Well, anytime I get to hear somebody shout out a racetrack like that, it's a cool thing. Like I said, I didn't watch the race, but the only thing I know about it was Taylor Gray catching another weird stray from the Fox booth. Jimmy Little referring to him as a tall, thick young man. Mm-hmm. And from what I gather, the booth just kind of moved right on from that without acknowledging it. So.
But Taylor did. He immediately changed his Twitter bio to that.
Yeah.
It's funny. Got a kick out of that.
Yeah. Any idea what that was in context too?
She was comparing.
No idea. I think the Fox booth is just horny for the Taylor Gray.
Yeah.
They were. She was talking about both the Grays, and that was her way of differentiating the two. Was to call Taylor the tall, thick one.
Is the other one short and thin? What?
I don't fucking know. I don't know. I think I saw a picture of Taylor, and he didn't look that.
Not sure I've ever seen either one of them before, to be honest with you. I do kind of pull
out of a lineup.
I do pull for those guys since they are New Mexican, or at least originally they were. It was cool to see Artesia, New Mexico, up on the screen. I think it just says Mooresville or some bullshit now, but yeah, we grow them tall and thick out west. That's for sure.
The only thing that I saw from the truck race was Mikey standing next to a dead alligator wrapped in bacon. It was terrifying. It was disgusting.
Oh man.
The other highlight though from Saturday would be very viral kick-ass clip of Jesse Love's crew guy just belly flopping onto the hood of his wrecked car.
Unexpected is the way I would put that.
He's a man on a mission. He had a plan, and it worked.
I can't say I've ever seen anybody do that, and not trying to fuck somebody's day up. You see it at Martinsville at the late model races and shit and short tracks all over the place. But I've never seen somebody dive on there for the purpose of a repair. So congrats to that guy, whoever he is.
And then from there, Sunday was the Cup race was boring for the most part, but there were some interesting things that happened towards the end of the race. Obviously, with it looked like there's shaping up to be a really. I mean, Christopher Bell dominated the race. It was his car. It was his race to lose, and Blaney was also. He started on the pole. Blaney was up there a good portion of the day. And towards the last, 20, 30 laps or something like that, Bell was very clearly shaping up to get his lead back and probably have a good battle with Blaney for a minute. And I don't know what he did to his motor. It sounded like maybe he over-revved it or missed a shift or something, but he did something to the motor and was blowing up, so that ruined that battle. Yeah. He ended up getting nursed to the finish by Martin Truex, who on the radio even said, "I wish I blew up 100 laps ago." He was having a dog shit day.
Might as well help somebody out.
But yeah, he helped Bell finish in the top 10, so at least he salvaged that day.
Yeah, that was cool to see. Definitely a nice brand new pair of premium pleated Hagars arriving across the desk of Martin Truex after that effort. So.
Mm-hmm. Then from there, it looked like it was Blaney's race to lose with his teammate running behind him. And then As soon as the white flag fell, Blaney's car just ran out of gas. Yeah, he was very pissed off on the radio, and Austin Cindric was the surprise winner, which, he's definitely not performed incredibly well the last couple of years since his Daytona win, but I don't mind Austin. He's kind of a likable dork, and good for him. He was in the right place at the right time, which is sometimes just how wins work out for people. So
that's how it goes. Yeah, he was fast. I mean, he was up front in qualifying. He was fast all weekend. So yeah, it's not really that much of a surprise.
Yeah. Well, the biggest moment for me there was Mike Joy's animated call as Cindric is taking the checkered flag and with only one top 10 this season, Cindric is going to the playoffs. I was like, wow.
Yeah.
That's a real
embarrassing.
Yeah, really. and in light of the fact that NASCAR hadn't made a waiver decision on Kyle Larson yet.
Yeah.
Maybe there's a little stink on that one. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's what I took out of it anyway. I really enjoyed that race. I didn't think it was all that boring. Granted, I grew up in a time where there were a lot of races that you could consider boring, I guess, as we all did. But, how often do you see, motor failures and that kind of shit happen? And true attrition and strategy. So it was definitely very old school. It was a nice little preview of, I think, what I'm going to be in for at Loudon, because Gateway's very similar.
Yeah.
But, I enjoyed it.
It wasn't awful. It was just not the most exciting race, but again, the end kind of made up for it. And like Rob said, the strategy and stuff playing out. Yeah, it was an old school race in that sense. So
Also, shout out to the bottom half of the top 10. Kyle Larson, of course, getting in a little bit of trouble with Kyle Busch earlier in the race, and Kyle, I don't know if I'd say he wrecked himself, but he certainly got the the short end of that stick.
Yeah.
Kyle Larson made it back in the top 10, so good for him. Also, shout out, I was going to say Carson Hocevar.
Carson Hocevar and Justin Haley both getting top 10.
Another top 10.
Good for them.
And Pop, special boy.
That's right. Austin Dillon, folks.
Finished 6th.
But,
and broke everyone's bracket.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yes.
Yeah, if you're playing that Denny Hamlin bracket challenge, we're all fucked. I don't think anybody has a bracket anymore.
They said on the podcast that there's no perfect brackets left. Everyone's out after that race. So
hilarious.
Thanks, Austin.
Corey LaJoy still not performing well. I think he had motor issues, and that was a real surprise. So.
Yeah. He finished 32nd, one lap down on the 1-year anniversary of him blowing his big chance at Hendrick.
Yeah. Meanwhile, Carson Hocevar was cruising to a top 15 finish until he got into trouble that day, and then he came back and got a top 10. So yeah, I enjoyed all of that. That was good.
For all the silly season talk and all the open seats, I don't know what Corey LaJoy's contract looks like, but I feel like he should be worried next as far as losing his ride, because I don't know how Spire keeps him in that car. There's no point.
Yeah, especially when you got guys like Carson and Michael McDowell coming over to the team next year. Now you got an actual seasoned veteran in there, and that guy can win races. So,
other drivers that are on the open market looking for rides too that are much better than Corey LaJoy. So
yeah, when you got a potential Josh Berry, Rodney Childers combo flying around out there, you can't get too comfy. Maybe hang on to the Chili's uniform so you can wear it when you get to work next year or whenever the contract is up.
Suck up those coupons they're giving you.
Exactly.
But also on Sunday, the IndyCar race in Detroit was a total shit show, both on the track and off the track, with Santino Ferrucci making himself look like a dickhead before the race even started on Saturday, making a somewhat homophobic joke about Joseph Newgarden and his teammate, and pissing off people in that sense, and also just driving like a dickhead. So, good look from him. That was good.
Went out and tried to fight Kyle Kirkwood, who wanted none of it because he just thought it was ridiculous. I always I kind of liken Santino. Well, I don't liken him to this. It's what he is. I kind of refer to him as a guy who thinks he's a sprint car driver, but he can't drive one. And I've seen him at the Chili Bowl. It's not the worst thing ever, but he's certainly not that good. So he's great at Indianapolis, but I don't know how many second, third, and fourth chances you get when you're at a team that doesn't perform all that well, which is a shame. Foyt has made improvements for sure, but not enough to I don't know. There's definitely other guys out there who could probably do better and maybe bring some sponsors in other than Santino. But yeah, that kid's such a dickhead. Speaking of dickheads, I saw this on Instagram after the race on Monday, and I thought that maybe like something had happened after the race, like maybe Augustine Canapino hit his girlfriend or something like that. But he got into I'm not even gonna try and say this guy's name. I'm sorry, but one of the Arrow McLaren guys, the rookie, that starts with a P. So. French guy, so you can take your best guess at home. But
Pierre.
Yeah, it was Pierre. We'll call him. Here we are continuing the fine tradition of Augustine Canapino and his fans. They had some contact. It honestly wasn't much of anything, but if you know Argentinian sports fans, which that's where Augustine is from, they are very rabid, and they definitely took to the internet to let this young French man know that he was going to die at their hands at some point. And of course, IndyCar and everybody it was a huge deal, kind of overshadowed Santino a little bit. But yeah, I don't know how to feel about that necessarily, because I feel like sports fans do all sorts of wild shit like that all the time, and it's not necessarily right. But just the campaign that IndyCar put out after that was just kind of intense. I'd be curious to see, if something like that happened in NASCAR, how they would handle it. But I don't know. They don't tend to handle things anyway, so who knows?
Well, I mean, we kind of saw that in 2020 with all the Bubba shit, because I mean he was getting death threats and all sorts of stuff for that. So,
that's true. Yeah, that was a little different, but yeah, it was. Augustine. This is the second time this has happened too. He had a run-in with Callum Ilott last year, or the year before, and a very similar thing in IndyCar. I had to put a statement out and all that. So a couple of guys who really just need to like take a nice deep breath and maybe consider that at some point their checks will become uncashable. If they,
I have one positive IndyCar tidbit. So the past 2 weeks in a row, Flavor Flav has been at the track hanging out with his best friend Will Power. Mm-hmm. And I read a news article that Flavor Flav is single-handedly trying to save Red Lobster by ordering everything off the menu. So,
which is a kitchen's worst nightmare, by the way.
I think he's doing more harm than good, but
yeah, but that's the thought that counts. Yeah, Scott Dixon getting a win in a very chaotic race there, and Flavor Flav saved Red Lobster. That's a pretty good weekend, I guess.
I hope him and Will Power keep hanging out.
Yeah,
forever.
Seriously. One thing I do want to mention, and I don't like to talk about ratings and that sort of shit all that much, but the drop off from Indianapolis to Detroit, it's always pretty intense, but I think they only had something like 600,000 viewers or some shit like that. After 5.4 million last week. And I don't really care what metric you slice that with. That's bad. That's real fucking bad. Especially after having one of another great 500. They're usually pretty exciting, and that one was particularly awesome. Yeah. But yeah. If anyone was wondering if any NASCAR fans decided to tune in as well, it doesn't seem like they did. So, because that's pretty brutal drop off, and you got to think that the folks in Indianapolis or wherever IndyCar's HQ is located, that they're sweating a little bit today.
Well, I mean that's kind of on them though. I mean they haven't been very good at promoting their own sport, and everybody notices it, So it is what it is.
Yeah, it's a damn shame.
Yeah. Moving on from that, though, there's a bunch of different news bits to talk about. And before we get into the meat of this, there was some breaking news that came out this afternoon. Former NASCAR driver and sprint car Northeast dirt driver Ty Scott has been arrested in the January 6th investigation. I guess he was one of the protesters at the Capitol. Now, if that's not a name that rings a bell, that's zero surprise, because Ty hasn't driven in almost 40 years. Probably he's best race was he had a couple like top fives in NASCAR, and he finished 6th in the 79 500, which we all know how famous that race was. But he really didn't have much of a racing legacy, and 40 years later he's getting arrested for January 6th, which I'm surprised they're still arresting people for that. But I think it's very funny, and I doubt you're going to see that name on any NASCAR media anytime soon. So
no, I just wanted to say that. Yeah. That's certainly not getting the rounds on the promotional trail this week. So.
Yep. Another thing that we thankfully will not have to talk about anymore is Kyle Larson got his fucking waiver. Thank fuck.
Our national nightmare is over.
I'm so glad that we don't have to hear about this anymore. It's over and done with. He got it as he should have. The whole thing with certain people at NASCAR being butthurt that he chose Indy over the 600 is just completely laughable. It's not good for motorsports as a whole. It's NASCAR's always had this tradition of we're the top sport in America, and it took them a while to get to that point. They have been at that point for a while, but to have anybody at that level of the sport treating the Indy 500 that way, or it's just insane. And there would be so many bad things that would come from them not giving him the waiver that, thankfully they cooler heads prevailed, and it's over and done with now.
Yeah. So the statement that Elton Sawyer made about it was pretty reasonable. It kind of, backed up what I had in my head that was going on. They wanted to make sure they did it right. No doubt there will be some sort of rule book adjustment at some point to make this a little more clear cut, or maybe not. I don't know. But that's kind of what I figured. I think Kenny Wallace even said this on Twitter or on one of his couch rants that NASCAR is currently rewriting the rule book at this moment, and that's why it's taking so long. But that said, I'm a little surprised they weren't prepared a little bit more for this to happen. It really does come off like a sort of bitchy, petty kind of reaction, even if it wasn't. The way it was handled by NASCAR brass was certainly pretty fucking lame, in my opinion.
I think it's definitely something that should have been hammered out before he even went to Indy.
Yeah, that it rains, it's spring. There was a very real possibility that this was going to happen. The weathermen were talking about it for weeks before the 500 that it was going to rain. They knew on Tuesday that there was a good chance this was going to happen. And, again, I understand, NASCAR not being thrilled with one of their guys choosing a different race. I think that's a reasonable thing to do. But, again, if you have a system like we have with the waivers in place already, and the rules are the rules, but when you don't follow those rules in the first place, I think I said this last week, what does it matter? Just fucking do it. Who cares? If you're not going to follow your own rule book, then what's the point of choosing to do it now? So, but I'm happy to see this is over.
I think if he hadn't showed up at all to Charlotte afterwards, then it might have been a different story.
Yeah.
But
I mean, if anything, this just shows how goofball this championship system is, because and Elton Sawyer even said this when he was delivering his remarks on the decision, that they felt that the penalty of Kyle not getting points for Charlotte was enough. Yeah. It's well, that's what would have happened anyway. So what's the fucking point? I don't understand this shit. It's... Yeah. I don't know. Yeah, definitely somebody got their feelings hurt, and then everyone lawyered up, and then cooler heads prevailed, and here we are. And now we can pretend like it never happened. So. Yep.
Thank God. I was so sick of hearing his stupid name.
Which one?
Sorry.
Kyle Larson?
Yes.
We beat the case, folks.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
But I would say the only other thing to talk about is just the persistent bootlicking by certain people involved in NASCAR, and both from a fan perspective and from a media perspective. Dave Moody being another one that saying a bunch of dumb shit. He pissed me off today too with some Days of Thunder slander. So
yeah, same.
Fuck him.
I had to mute him immediately. It's so over him.
There was a tweet earlier that there was a video clip, I forget who it was, but talking about the rubbing his racing quote, and Dave quote tweeted that with a stupid line from a stupid movie, and it's fuck yourself, Dave. It's do you know how much good that movie did for the sport? It might be cheesy for some of the purists, but
is that the Derek Pernissiglio thing?
I think so, yeah.
Yeah, that's a great show, by the way. If you guys are listening to this and you want to hear about some Northeast shit and beyond. But yeah, I didn't realize that Moody had something to say about that. Of course he did.
Yeah, and then there was all these people calling him out saying that they've heard him use that line countless times on his show, and he was.
Yeah.
That's the thing.
That guy's an idiot.
When you call him out on something that he has said, he seems to just completely ignore it. He'll argue with people all day long until you call him out on something, and then he'll shut right up. So that's a surprise.
Yeah, that's also where our Darf of the Week comes from. I don't really know who this person is. I don't even know if we need to read it because it's just the same shit. A guy named Alan Bedgood, I guess he's a Twitter guy. I don't know. He says, this whole situation has turned me anti-Larson. He chose IndyCar over NASCAR, and it's been rewarded. Infuriating. Is it, though?
It's not. That dipshit has Sprint Car Fan in his bio, too. He also has South Park in his bio, so that can kind of tell you where his brain's
What the
at.
hell he feels about the whole World of Outlaws high limit thing. So.
I'll take people in the anti-Larson club any way I can get them.
Yeah.
Welcome to the club, Alan.
Some more little social media bullshit that I think is fake. There was a tweet that was put out Sunday basically stating that the reason why Eric Almirola is no longer driving for JGR was that in a Toyota team meeting, he got in a fight with Bubba Wallace, and Bubba called him out for not performing.
That's rich. Yeah.
Which I don't think is true. Like I know he and Bubba have had their run-ins, but like I think Eric. Correct me if I'm wrong, but I mean Eric's only run that car, the JGR car, like twice, and he hasn't run horribly in it. He didn't win, but he hasn't. I don't think I remember seeing any like horrible
Didn't he win at like
performances.
Sonoma or something last year?
He won last year, but
somewhere?
that was in a different car. It wasn't a JGR
okay.
car.
And they
That's
put
right.
Drew Dollar in that motherfucker. So at one point, so
Yeah,
I don't know, man. Like, I kind of. It's funny. I hope it's true.
It was a tweet by someone who really wasn't reputable either. I think it was just one of those. Granted, we did have a friend of ours who has some insight. He thinks it could be true, but he also said Almirola is a dick and no one likes him. So maybe that's got something to do with it. Who
Now
knows?
that's a tweet I would believe if you put that on the internet.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
100%. But he did kind of mysteriously just disappear.
That was odd, and there was no fanfare about it.
Yeah. I did see that someone posted that like they've removed him off the JGR website.
Yeah. Who knows? I mean, that sort of shit has happened before, and you don't hear about it. You know, NASCAR likes to keep that shit nice and tight, as does the teams. So who knows?
Especially over at the Gibbs camp.
Yep.
They don't let any secrets out.
Nope. And the only guy who's allowed to fight is Ty Gibbs.
And he's also allowed to run over his crew members, too.
That's true. That did happen, which Fox missed. Man,
Which apparently was his cousin also.
he ran his cousin over.
Yeah.
Oh, no.
He wants to be the only Gibbs remaining for the inheritance.
Yeah, well, he'll be. I'm sure
God,
I'm
Jesus.
sure his cousin will send him a nice edible arrangement or something for that.
Yeah.
But, before we move on from the NASCAR talk for the weekend, just one more weekend of this shambles fucking Fox situation we have going on.
God.
And, like, it's all on the direction. It's 100% direction, and like it almost feels like if you're you watch a sprint car race that has like one camera up on the tower, and it's just following whoever the leader is, or like if somebody like flies off into the night, off the edge of the cushion, they'll like film that, but the announcer is talking about something completely different. That was the race on Sunday. And I honestly thought that Mike Joy and the booth actually did a pretty good job of covering that race, from the racetrack. You could tell they were on the premises. They were engaged. They knew what they were talking about. They were pointing out things that were happening, but not a single one of them made it on the television.
Yeah.
And
They were talking about the pyrotechnics in depth, and Fox failed to show it for the third year in a row,
Yeah,
which is like that track's one big selling point.
Yeah, Ty Gibbs trying to kill his cousin. That didn't make the broadcast. And the worst, the biggest sin for me was when Blaney and Christopher Bell were going at it towards the end of stage 3. And Bell finally got beside Blaney, and it looked like the pass was going to happen. And they switched to a split screen shot of children in Christopher Bell and Ryan Blaney shirts. And by the time they went back to it, the pass had been completed. So, yeah, one more week into this bullshit. I cannot wait for this to be over. And I hate to say it because there's so many talented people on that crew. But hey, you know, Fox seems to be laying a lot of people off and sort of consolidating, so maybe they'll get a job somewhere else. I hope they do, especially Larry Mack and Mike Joy. And I even like fucking Kevin Harvick and Clint, to be honest with you.
Yeah. Jamie Mack did a great job in the Xfinity booth on
That's what I heard. Yeah.
Saturday.
That's what I've heard. He's a great broadcaster.
Yeah, he is.
One bright spot I'll give them, though, is I forget what was happening with Truex. Something was happening with Truex, and they cut to a crowd shot of this clearly drunk middle-aged woman, very up, like in a Truex tank top, just very upset, like didn't even know what to do with herself. I got a huge kick out of that.
That was great. Yeah, walking down the stairs.
Broadcast highlight.
Yeah, that's definitely one of my long lost aunts from Missouri right there. I'm pretty sure we're related.
Some other notes, though, a couple things. Todd Gilliland just announced an extension with Front Row, which I don't think anybody's surprised by. He's been doing pretty well for his time in that car, so that's good to see. I
thought that had already been announced, to be honest with you, but you know, especially the Front Row expanding and like who else is coming into that team and this sort of like musical chairs shit going on. I wouldn't have been surprised if somebody else made it in there despite him being announced, because it's not the first time he's been kind of screwed over in a situation like that. But he's been good.
He's proven himself.
I agree.
He's been doing good. He hasn't been wrecking cars. Like, I like him. I hope he does well. I want to see him get a win sooner than later. So that was good to see. Rob, you also sent along a... Sorry?
I was just going to say he's higher in points than McDowell right now. So he's doing good.
That's true. Yeah.
Yeah, that is true. Rob, you sent along a report of this crash report of the stats of everybody.
Yes,
and talk a little more about that.
Daily Downforce, good website. They put together the complete NASCAR Cup Series 2024 incident tracker, and I love this shit. And I don't know if this data set is necessarily indicative of you know, who sucks the most, you know, because accidents happen. If you run around the back and you're, you know, not in a position you want to be, or you're running with other people who can't drive, or whatever the fuck, you know, you can get caught up in some shit. But I was very, very surprised to find out who our number one. Whoa.
Oh.
Hell yeah.
I was not surprised by this stat.
Turn it back on. Let's get some background music to announce John Hunter Nemechek, folks. He's been involved in an accident at 9 out of 15 races. That's 60%. He's been in 9 accidents, period. And that comes out to an average of 0.6 accidents per race. So that sucks. That's not good. That's not good. Ricky Stenhouse, who I think a lot of people would assume he's up in the mix, he definitely is. He's been in 7. A lot of the part-timers, you know, kind of... It's interesting because it kind of shows you just who has experience and who's out there all the time and who's not. You know, like as far as like wreck avoidance and that sort of thing. Like the more seat time you get, the better you're going to be at avoiding this shit. There's no question about that. And just the amount of part-timers that have had really bad times out there. Jimmy Johnson being an obvious one. That's just sad. But I am happy to report that Cody Ware has wrecked in both races. We all knew this, but just to see it presented on the stat board, 100% of the races he's been in, he's wrecked. I love that.
I think he wrecked twice on Sunday.
He did. He brought out the first 2 cautions within the first 20 laps on Sunday. So
incredible.
Good for him. Rick is proud.
Yeah, Josh Berry also pretty high up there. He's been in 9 accidents. But again, a lot of that is just that car not being in a good spot at the beginning of the season. He's pretty handy at staying out of trouble sometimes. Yeah. So. Yeah. But yeah, I don't actually know who the least dangerous driver is out there. But I will tell you this, that Noah Gragson is certainly one of them. So he's come a long way, folks.
Yeah, you can't argue that. And then I guess the last little thing to talk about here is John Force won his 2nd national of the season. It was up by you, Rob. I forget exactly which track it was.
Yeah, it was up at Epping. Yeah.
Up at Epping, yeah. But won his 2nd national, and then pretty almost immediately announced he was probably going to be retiring soon, which he's 75, folks. Even though he's still winning, this isn't a surprise. But he's still got some life to live, and hopefully, I would love to see him get one last title. I don't know where he's at in the points right now, but I would love to see him get one last title on his way out. I think after hearing this, I think I'm almost definitely going to try to make it out to Norwalk when NHRA is there, and I think around the 4th of July they usually run, so I think I'm going to try to make it out there and see him at least one more time before he's out. So the greatest to ever do it, and if you get a chance, get to NHRA race this year and see him, because this might be your last shot.
Yeah,
so.
And I certainly didn't go, and I'm regretting the fuck out of it, because that was part of my itinerary for the weekend, but I just got lazy on Sunday and decided to sit on the couch and watch IndyCar instead. And then, of course, John Force goes out and wins, and that's the thing. You never know what you're going to witness when you go out to a racetrack, so if you have the opportunity, don't fucking be lazy like I was.
Well, following off that, though, I mean, you did have a weekend of a bunch of racing, so we're just about at the septic tank visit. So
let's climb on in. Yeah, I went to a couple different tracks this weekend. A lot of action up here in New England. Of course, as we were just talking about, the New England Nationals up in Epping happened on all weekend. I really wanted to get up there, but just sitting in that Massachusetts traffic on a Sunday afternoon really just didn't sound like something I wanted to do. Now I'm regretting it seriously, but I did make it out to both Stafford and to Seekonk this weekend. Went to Stafford on a Friday night for AZ Roofing Kids Night, just a typical, Friday night show down there with the SK Modifieds and all the track divisions and all that. Almost every single feature. The SK Modified Light feature, or the SK Lights, that was a shit show, but it usually is. Nick Anglais wrecked and everyone like that. The SK Modifieds, though, the big division, there is no better short track division, like a weekly division in the United States. There's none better. And I think I might have lost everybody here.
I'm here.
Okay, good.
I'm listening to your septic tank.
I thought maybe I was talking into the ether here and you guys were having your own conversation. But There is no better weekly pavement division in the United States than the SK Modifieds. They put on a ridiculous show every time they're on the racetrack. Very, very talented drivers. Super fast cars. Just fucking killer. There's never a bad weekend or a bad Friday night to go out to Stafford. I'll say that. And again, I've talked about Stafford at length on the show before, so I won't bore you with the details, but it is the nicest short track in the U.S. The only other thing...
Some good weather?
Oh, it was absolutely beautiful. It was like 8 degrees when I got there, something like that. And it dropped down to low 60s, so it was like hoodie weather. It was fucking perfect. The only real complaint I have was, for whatever reason, it was cash only.
Yeah.
Which is fine. Which is fine. With the exception of the ticket booth, they were able to help me out. But I left my debit card on my desk at home.
That's you, Rob.
That's my fault.
I think every short track I go to, it's all, at least as far as concessions go, it's all cash only.
Always cash only. Yeah, but I've gotten used to, especially the big events. They do have credit card readers and all that shit. So. I didn't realize it until I tried to buy a beer, and then I went to the ATM, and I didn't have my card on me. And it is all on me, but just for all the listeners out there, if you're not familiar with short tracks or going to racetracks like that, always bring cash. Mm-hmm. Always, 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 always bring cash. Just do it. You'll have a much better time. Saturday, me and my buddy Orion went down to Seekonk for the NASCAR Willin Modified Tour. It was fucking killer as well. All the local divisions that were there. Put on a hell of a show. The late model division there is fucking awesome. The street stocks or sportsman cars, they put on a show too. And the modified tour was, it was an exciting race. If you happened to miss the start because you were at the pisser or something, you'd have no idea what was going on. Because the scoring pylon is like tucked off behind like a picnic table, pavilion. So my buddy went to buy a hot dog and he came back. He's not a racing guy either. And he was just like, what the fuck is happening? It's so loud and I have no idea what's going on. It's like, well, that's your own fault. So, Austin Beers got the pole for that one off the invert. The actual fastest car was Matt Hirschman, though. And after a late restart, Matt was able to get past him and he sailed off into the sunset. So another Matt Hirschman win under my belt, which, whatever. I'm a big Austin Beers fan, so I try not to get too angry about it. But, Matt's fucking good at what he does. And, what a great little racetrack Seekonk is. It's one of the oldest racetracks in the United States. I mean, that's a designation that a lot of places up here in New England carries. It's right across the river from Providence, Rhode Island. It definitely feels like you're in Rhode Island. It doesn't feel like Massachusetts. If you've been up here, you know exactly what I'm talking about. But it's kind of cool. It's like a big flat parking lot. You can't really see much of the racetrack. And you walk up to the ticket booth and like through the gate, and the track is below you in this big hole in the ground. So you're at the top of the grandstands when you walk in and out of the parking lot. So that's pretty cool. But yeah, Seekonk is another great little local track we have up here that runs divisions on Fridays and Saturdays, and they have some big shows coming through there. And yeah, they actually do have credit cards there. So we brought cash anyway, just in case, because I didn't want to get burned twice, because I was very hungry coming home from Stafford. And ended up really not eating dinner at all when I was there anyway. So, you know, it is what it is. I had a 99 bananas nip for dinner. But it was a great night. Another beautiful weather day. Just a perfect day to be out at the racetrack. And I think I gained a new fan of short track racing by bringing my buddy out with me. So, yeah, it was a killer time. And you guys got to get up here and see at least one of these places at some point. We have so many good racetracks in New England.
I feel like I might have been to Seekonk before.
Really?
When I was like 21, I dated a guy off MySpace that lived in Rhode Island.
Yeah.
And he took me to a short track around there, but I have very little memory of it, and I can't recall the name of it.
It
but
almost had to be Seekonk. It wasn't a dirt track,
like
right?
It was. No.
Yeah, because Whip City was the other one down there. But
yeah, I think it was Seekonk.
Yeah, well, that's crazy. I had no idea. But yeah, so you've been there, you know. It's when you
barely. I don't.
Be forewarned.
Many moons ago.
Whereas Stafford has televisions at their urinals, it feels like you're in a jail cell when you're taking a piss at Seekonk. Some of the gnarliest and sketchiest bathrooms in the United States, but you know, can't win them all. And then Sunday I was vacillating on going to Hudson or up to Epping for NHRA, and just ended up sitting on the couch, which again, I wish I would have gone to the drag races, but you know, it is what it is. Hopefully John Force sticks around one more year and does a big farewell tour, and that'll pack the place for sure. But yeah, that was my weekend up here. It was nice to have one without any sort of weather at all in the forecast, and just not have to worry about bringing a poncho or getting soaked or saving another fucking wristband to my refrigerator, because I have a stack of them already. So that was nice. But again, like I said, a lot of racing in New England, a lot of racing everywhere. The finish of the week here in the septic tank was definitely that Cars Tour race down at Langley. Connor Hall beating Brent Cruz at the line by 7 thousandths of a second. And also Carson Quapple was involved in that too. 3 wide coming to the line. Connor Hall gave some people think it's a douchey interview. I just think it was kind of clunky, and you know, kind of like when Denny tried to talk shit to the fans. Like, I'll just be your favorite driver. It just kind of came off like that to me a little bit.
That was my first time ever.
Takes a lot more talent to drive than Boo or whatever. It's like,
yeah, that was my first introduction to that guy, and immediately I was like, nah, I don't think I like this guy.
Yeah, Connor Hall was, he's a talented guy though, so that was, that was a killer finish, and I'm sure we'll post a video of it on the internet.
It was a good finish, yeah.
The big viral moment of the weekend, there was a big fight in the tech shed at Carolina Speedway. I don't even know who these guys are. Definitely some street stock type division, but some guy climbed in the right side window while a guy was in tech and tried to fight him, which is not a move. And so the driver just floored it out of there and took him for a ride through the pits. And yeah, just real goofy shit. They don't even made it to Barstool Sports, so it is pretty funny. But yeah, if you're gonna fight somebody, don't do it in the tech shed, and certainly not when the guy's strapped in. That's kind of chicken shit, and not to mention the tech guy's not gonna like that. And they can't run fast enough to break it up typically. So high limit race on Sunday at Butler. It was postponed to Sunday because of rain, but they still got the show in right after the Cup race wrapped up, so that was nice to flip over to Flo and have some sprint cars to watch. James McFadden getting his first high limit win. Another very, very close finish. I think it was like a 100th of a second or something like that over Brad Sweet. But it was, McFadden had the pole. He led every single lap, but he had to earn that win on every single lap. He had to fight off Tyler Courtney, Brad Sweet, of course. I want to say Justin Peck was in the mix for a little bit. It was a great race. So another nice show for High Limit. And then let's see here. Well, Brian, do you want to talk about Albany, Saratoga?
Yeah, we can get into that.
Some bad news here.
Some bad news. So when I went up to Albany, Saratoga last year, I kind of mentioned how I noticed a lot of the property around the track was getting way more developed. And granted, it had been 20 years since I've been there, but just a lot more growth in that area than I'd remembered. And unfortunately, on Monday, it was announced that Albany Saratoga has been sold, and it potentially looks like maybe next year, maybe it's last year. So we'll get into this now. For those who don't know, Albany Saratoga, I mean, it's been around since the 60s. Next year will be their 60th season. Very briefly was paved and had some cup races in the 70s. But this track, you know, about 10 years ago, Howie Commander, who is the owner of Lebanon Valley Speedway, he had bought the track and more or less has kept the track going for the last almost decade. And apparently what happened was, very quietly during the off season, he was sent an offer for the track that must have been one he couldn't refuse because he sold it very quietly. This news report that came out, though, there was a video, and then also just a little, you know, text blurb about the story, and in the story made it sound like the track was being sold as part of a government initiative to help get more low-income housing in certain neighborhoods, which is complete bullshit. If you actually watched the news video clip, one of the developers talks about it, and this is a $250 million proposal to put in, retail shopping centers, housing for all types of incomes. What I gather is that this government program that is this developer is probably latching onto to maybe get some sort of grant or something. Yeah. Long story short, this is not going to be some Section 8 housing that's put up in place of a racetrack, and unfortunately that's one of the main things that a lot of the people commenting online were saying, and it's people are just completely ignorant and can't read or can't actually parse news properly. You know, if you want to blame anybody, you can blame Howie, but at the same time, Howie's in his 80s. He still owns Lebanon Valley. Lebanon Valley's not going anywhere. People are like, oh, what's next for Lebanon Valley? Well, folks, the area that's Albany Saratoga is in, there's a lot of money. It's right by the Saratoga Racecourse, which if you don't know Saratoga, that's one of the Triple Crown horse racing tracks. Lots and lots of money in Saratoga. Malta itself has gotten a lot more development. There's a lot of nanotechnology up in that area. There's been a lot of industry that's been growing in that area. There's a lot of money in that area. So no, the racetrack is not getting torn down to be turned into a project. That's not fucking happening. Nothing is set in stone. But in saying that, yes, the track is probably going away in the next few years, which is sad, but unfortunately, it's just kind of how racing is these days. I mean, This happens all over the country, and, if the track does go away, it's going to be sad, but at the same time, I mean, this isn't the 80s and 90s anymore. Unfortunately, especially in the modified scene, it's not what it was as far as car counts and all that stuff goes. Yeah. Albany Saratoga still has great crowds. Like when I went last August, it was a very full house, racing all night long, lots of cars, lots of people. Like the parking lot was full. It was a bummer, but at the same time, like, it is what it is. Like, this is business. Like, yeah, I mean, maybe somebody else could have bought the track and kept it going, but I mean, I'm sure Howie got a substantially larger number than any other person looking to buy that track and keep it open would have given him. So I mean, it's just unfortunate. But I was getting annoyed at all the ignorance. Like, even my mom, like, she saw that article, was like, oh, that fucking New York government. It's like, well, Mom, that's not what's actually happening. If you actually took 2 seconds to look at it, it's a $250 million development they're trying to put in. So what's
worse for a bunch of rich NIMBY New Yorkers, a racetrack that you moved next to, or some projects? Which is worse for those people?
Well, this is like, I don't know. It's not rural. I mean, it's a little bit rural compared to some places, but it's not the city. I mean, but there's just lots of money and lots of people up there, and the housing options are. It's definitely getting more expensive to live up there, and even if you work up there. But I don't know. It was just frustrating because, like, you know, we talk about NASCAR's issues with inclusivity and people who have kind of some, you know, antiquated and backwards ideas of the world. And if you think it's bad in NASCAR, go on a short track, dirt track Facebook group and look at some of those comments, because you are it's a fucking nightmare, some of those fucking people. So you know, bummer news, but I mean, I said it last year, like I'm shocked that the track has much time as is, because there's like a massive upscale shopping center like blocks away from the track as it is now. So
I kind of feel like that's one of those things where everyone's just everyone's been waiting for it, you know. I think we're almost surprised to hear, like you said, that it's still there and still putting shows on. So it's again, it sucks to lose a racetrack, and especially one like that.
So yeah, that's my big rant about Albany Saratoga. I will say this: I will 100% be there on August 2nd. So if anybody, Rob, I'm already calling you out. You got months to prepare. Come out to a race with me, and you know, we'll have a good time. But
I think I'm gonna have to do that. Like I said, I've never been to Albany Saratoga.
It's a great track. I mean, it's not as big as Lebanon Valley, but it's a great track. Puts on good races. You know, it's that whole area. I mean, you got Fonda's only 45 minutes away. Lebanon Valley is about 45 minutes the other direction. So, I mean, there's other track options, but, you know, Albany's got that track has a lot of history. So to lose it will be very sad, but it's not going away tomorrow, and nothing is set in stone. But yeah, I mean, it's probably only got a few years left.
And it'll be open on August 2nd. So
yes, 100%.
Well, speaking of more dirt racing, some other kind of sad news about things coming to an end. Chris Madden announced that he's going to be scaling back his full-time efforts. I don't know if that's much of a surprise necessarily. He's definitely running a lot of the Hunt the Front races, a little more tight Southern schedule, that sort of thing. So, but yeah, he's been around a long time and he's very good. So it sucks to see him, see somebody like him scale back. But speaking of the super dirt late models, oh my goodness, it's Dream Weekend. It's here, folks. The Dream at Eldora.
Can't believe you aren't there.
I know. Kyle's not there either. I know he's bumming about it. Kyle Armstrong, friend of the program. He's who took me out there last time. But yeah, it just didn't come together this year, and I'm really, really bummed out. Mainly because it's the return of Scott Bloomquist. He wasn't racing last year. He was definitely on the property, but he's back in the car this year.
He is. Okay, so now I gotta see if I can maybe try to make it down there. But
Thursday, Friday, and Saturday. Great, so. Well, tonight sucked. We're recording this on a Wednesday night, so. If you're listening to this is not current, but the Flow Racing event they were putting on Wednesday night, so tonight, that got rained out. I don't know exactly what they're going to do, if they're going to try and add that to the Dream schedule. I really doubt they're going to try and fit that in, since there's like 100 cars there for the Dream. But huge entry list, as there always is. Basically, if you're even halfway good and you drive a dirt late model, you're on the property. Bobby Pierce, RTJ, Jonathan Davenport is there. God, who the fuck else? Tyler Erb, one of my personal favorites, is going to be there. We'll watch him knock the deck out of it. Mike Marlar, Jimmy Owens, the Nightmare, of course, is going to be there. Both father and son, Freddie Carpenter and Tyler, will be on the property as well. And then just a ton of other, just the who's who. Devin Moran, like, pick somebody. Kate, the only one who's not there is Kate Dillard. So, but everyone else in the world is there, and it's always a pretty good show. I know a lot of people are going to this thinking about the track conditions, since last year's Dream wasn't all that great, and the Dirt Track World Finals they had there, or the World Championship, that track was a minefield. But we'll see how it goes. They got a lot of rain today, but the forecast is clear, so hopefully they'll be able to get the track in good condition. I got to put my money on Jonathan Davenport yet again. He's just not quite as flashy as he was a couple years ago, but he still gets the job done often, and I think he's my big pick to win. I don't really have any dark horse picks or anything, but my heart is with Nick Hoffman, because that guy fucking rules, and he's been running real well this year. So hopefully he'll make it out of the B main into the big show this year. And it's also, what else? Indiana Midget Week is happening, so that's cool. That's all on Flow Racing this week. But like I said, I don't know how much NASCAR I'll be watching until Sunday, because the Dream, I'm going to have to sleep late and sort of prepare for 3 nights in front of the television. So. But yeah, I'm very excited for that. That is the short track septic tank for this week. Like I said, the Dream is the only thing I really care about that's going on this weekend. But as always, there's a shit ton of awesome racing. World of Outlaws are at Beaver Dam, I think, this weekend. That's always a good show. And then there's so much other stuff going on. So if you want to watch short track racing, you should and you can. So let's just go ahead and we'll go ahead and throw my debit card into the bottom of the septic tank here, and we'll move it on out, folks.
Are you going to make your own toilet bowls to drink while watching the Dream this weekend?
The problem is the liqueurs they use to make the toilet water. I can't find them out here. Yeah, they're French. Maybe I can talk to the IndyCar driver, Pierre, and get him to send me some. But no, it's just whatever bottles of sugar they use to put together. They do not sell in New England. So, unfortunately, I will not. Maybe I'll make some approximation of it. It's green with a Tootsie Roll.
Make them with some nips or some Mad Dog or something.
That's a good idea. It is kind of like Mad Dog. Maybe I'll go get me a green Mad Dog and some Tootsie Rolls and participate at home. But yeah, if you have any opportunity at all to watch the racing this weekend, this is one of the big events in dirt track racing across the board, regardless of the division, type of car or whatever. Like the Dream is one of the big shows, and it pays a shit ton to win. So definitely tune in, and if you have a Flow subscription, you're in luck because all 3 nights are broadcasting there. So yeah, no more secret link. Sorry, guys.
No. Did Brian quit?
Well, no, am I here?
He's looking up how much it costs to get gas to get down to Eldora right now.
He's looking at the radar.
No, I'm here. It's like 3. It's more like I gotta fucking figure out what to do with my dog and stuff. So we'll look into it. We'll see. Well, yeah. Is that the end of the septic tank?
That's the end of the septic tank. Yeah.
Did you flush it? I don't think you flushed it.
Oh, I didn't flush it. I just threw my debit card in. Let's get rid of that thing altogether.
There we go.
Well, speaking of septic tanks, we got a couple videos this week involving Tony.
Hell of a segue, buddy. That's great.
Involving Tony Stewart. And so the first one that I picked was a little bit of a bait and switch because I thought we were getting an entire home tour of Tony Stewart's house, but unfortunately this video was only really of his basement. In saying that, his house is massive, and if you look on YouTube, there's different tours and things like that. And I will say that the other video that you really should watch is Tony's garage tour with Jeff Gordon, where they talk about that one is fucking amazing just because it's Jeff and Tony mainly talking about sprint cars. And like I am, I'm aware of Jeff Gordon's sprint car history, but it is very cool to hear him talk about racing sprint cars. So if you haven't seen that, go watch that because it's definitely better than both of these videos we watched. But
it's easy to forget that Jeff Gordon came out of midget and sprint car racing. But and a quick recommendation. Again, I already talked about King of the Midgets on here, that Flow Racing documentary, which by the way is on YouTube. You can just watch it there. Jeff Gordon is heavily featured in that. And you get to see a lot of young Jeff Gordon with his stupid little mustache and mullet and all that. So
I did find a interesting Jeff Gordon 86 and 87 sprint car highlight videos that I think we'll probably have to watch at some point because I want to kind of dive into that. So that's on the eventual video of the week playlist. But for this week, so like I said, we don't get a full house tour. We just get a basement tour, but there's a lot going on in this basement. So the video starts off with Tony and Doug Bowles, who is, I guess, an IndyCar guy.
President of Indianapolis Motor Speedway.
There you go. He's very prestigious then. But this basement of Tony's starts off with Tony kind of talking about his video game and pinball machine collection, which is right there as soon as you walk in the basement. And the one thing that he keeps making a point of is how he's still a teenager. He's still 14 at heart is how he describes himself, which I would agree with if you read a lot of Tony's interviews and stuff over the years. Like, he definitely has a very adolescent mind for a lot of different things, but he talks about how video games and pinball and stuff are very very good for racers as far as like it's a hand-eye coordination thing, and that having those skills and keeping those skills sharp are very important for racing. So that makes sense to see him have all that stuff in the basement. So
however you got to justify it, it is cool though.
Yeah. From there, you move over to his pool table area, which is basically like a big, massive fucking tree trunk that they carved into a pool table. I gotta imagine that that's staying in the house. I don't think he's taking that anywhere. And the pool table itself is like surrounded by many bowling balls that are painted like pool balls, which you don't. I didn't realize he had a bowling alley down there too, but that's like the last thing they show. So I get that made sense. Like, why the fuck are all these bowling balls over the place?
Yeah.
Let's see here. There is a wall of signatures in his basement with so many people that have visited Tony's house. I mean, he said he used to do a lot of hunting and sportsman type gatherings at his house, which makes sense. I mean, he
lives in a Bass Pro Shops at this point.
He lives in a Bass Pro Shop, so that makes total sense. The funniest thing, though, talking about this wall of signatures, is they go right from there's Linda Vaughn, and then there's Jimmy John from Jimmy John's. So I just thought that was very, very
two peas in a pod.
Very funny jump. From there, they walk through some saloon doors and what was supposed to be the poker area. I guess one thing that I noticed in this walkthrough of his basement, there's a couple different design flaws that I guess like whoever he had helping build out this place like didn't figure out until they were actually in the process of putting it together, like this is gonna fucking work. And the arcade area was supposed to be the poker room, but it was too small, so they had to put the poker area in the bigger part of the basement. But he's got all these video games and shit, which is, not surprising.
Yeah.
The poker table itself is cool, but the real story in this whole video is Tony Stewart's helmet collection, along with his Indy car that's hanging in the wall of the basement. And they go through that for most of this, it's pretty interesting. He's got hundreds and hundreds of helmets from different drivers, people he's raced with, people he's watched growing up, his own helmets. He's got. This was almost jarring to me, but he was very proud of having Carl Edwards' helmet from the 2011 battle that he and Carl had for the title. Like,
Yeah.
That's almost like having your fucking enemy's head hanging in your basement to me. That's
I thought that was fucking sick. Yeah, I love that he has that.
And he also has Jimmy Johnson's 7th championship-winning helmet that he gave him like that night. Like straight out of the car, which is pretty cool.
Surprised by that. I guess it was Tony's last race too.
I guess I didn't realize that.
That's
also
right.
it was the same race, so that makes sense. And then from there, Tony says he's not much of a collector. Helmets are his main thing he collects, which is pretty clear. I mean, he's got hundreds of these things, but he's also got his. Oh, go ahead.
I was gonna say he said he had 350 at least.
Yeah, which, I mean, as a driver, it makes sense how he portrayed wanting to have this collection. Like, helmets are, probably the most precious part of safety equipment a driver has when you think about it. And it's, especially if you do a driver's suit. So, it makes sense that he'd want to collect those. But he also has
a pretty bulky thing to collect.
Yeah, I mean, they're big and heavy and take up a lot of space compared to a lot of things.
Tony clearly ran out of space, too, because they're just all on the floor. So.
Yeah. But he also has his 98 Indy car on the wall, which he talks about there, and that was kind of cool. He talks about how he never won the 500, but winning the Brickyard kind of helped satiate that desire to win an Indy. And he talked about how when he won the first one, he was almost getting like nauseous and overwhelmed. They kind of show a video clip of that, and I remember watching that live, and I guess I didn't really get that sentiment in the moment, but you see the clip.
Though. Yeah, so cool.
Yeah. What else? They show the rest of the casino that he has going on down there, and he says they play with fake chips down there, but I have a feeling that can't be true. I mean,
I call bullshit.
Yeah, that's not true at all.
that had to be some like legal disclaimer thing, like we're not playing with money down here. And then from there, the last little thing you see in the basement is like I mentioned, the bowling alley, which really, again, it made sense as to why all these bowling balls were all over the fucking place. So, cool basement. I mean, you know,
it's like having a Dave and Buster's in the basement of a Bass Pro Shops.
Yeah,
totally.
Yeah.
Combination Bass Pro Shop, Dave and Buster's.
Yeah.
That's a great way to put it. I would go to one of those, to be honest with you.
Yeah, I mean, who wouldn't?
I love the little segment about the BC 39 in there and talk about the dirt track at Indy. That was super cool too. I think that might have been part of why this video was made, was to help promote that. But it's always cool to see a Brian Clausen nod. Not to go back to Flow documentaries and completely different videos, but watch that Chasing 200 documentary as well. That just came out. It's fucking awesome if you want to cry your little eyes out for a little while. I recommend it. So, but yeah, God, what a fucking basement this is. I look at my little setup I have down here, and I just, you couldn't put all the helmets down here. So, good for Tony. But you can also buy it. You know, hey, I don't think it's sold yet.
I don't think it's gonna sell. I mean,
who's gonna buy it?
Specific buyer, yeah.
I mean, in saying that, I mean, Kevin Harvick also bought the fucking Talladega Nights
Ricky
house.
Bobby
So, I mean,
mansion,
yeah. Somebody out there will buy it eventually. So next up is the
Canandaigua, New York.
So I will, before we get into the second video, I'll say this. So we had somebody in our Instagram comments, and I won't dox them, just to you know, preserve their anonymity. But they thought when they asked what the video that you were thinking we were talking about was.
The video,
and While Rob thought it was going to be the Kevin Ward video, which we're not. That's
what
we would never.
Yeah, that's
maybe the Tubi documentary. Maybe.
Yeah, maybe eventually we'll watch that because I feel like there's some stuff to say there, but. There's not really too many jokes to be made about that video, but this particular person thought that we were going to be watching like a Tony Stewart sex tape, which
the only thing worse than the Kevin Ward video would be a Tony Stewart sex tape.
Queasy.
I hope one of those doesn't exist. The only sex tape that I'd be interested in seeing, and not so much for what happens, more the idea of the two. I don't know if that video exists, but if it ever did, it would probably destroy NASCAR, I think, if that video came out. But you can DM us if you want to talk about that.
Yeah.
I had a teeth cleaning this morning at my dentist, and while this lady's got her, fingers in my mouth cleaning my teeth, she's talking to me about NASCAR and how much she loves Tony Stewart, and I was like, this doesn't feel like an appropriate time, and all I could think about was this video that we watched. So
yeah, and you really couldn't talk anyway because her hands were fully in your mouth. So
But no, the actual video we watched was just a little recap of the infamous shit race. Tony Stewart's win at the 2004 Bud at the Glen. I don't know, I can't remember if it was a Bud at the Glen then, but I mean, whatever. It's the Watkins Glen race. So. This is a David Land video, which he's a NASCAR YouTuber. I'm not really much of a watcher of his, but there's a couple different shit videos out there, and this was the better one, so that's the one I went with.
Yeah. He shot himself. Yeah.
Yes. He described this race as potentially Tony's greatest win, which I don't know if I would call it that as far as, the prestige of the race and all that, but maybe with the circumstances, it's at very least it's one of his most grueling wins. So apparently this particular weekend in Watkins Glen, it was a bad weather weekend. There wasn't much on-track activity until Sunday, not much practice and all that stuff. But prior to the race, there's a very brief interview with Tony in the car, and he seems fine. Doesn't seem sick at all. Doesn't, But during the race, apparently, he started getting the bubble guts, which we've all had those. We all know what that's like. And
I've never had it in a race car, though. I can say that.
I never had it in a race car. I've never had that either. But we've all had it. But apparently, not too long into the race, he was getting pretty sick, and he was looking for a relief driver. But he was also racing for the lead. It was him and Jeff Gordon battling, and Tony was up there the whole time. So. I think it was around 20 laps or so was the first pit stop, and he chose to stay in the car then. I think at that point they hadn't yet found a relief driver for him, so that was one of the issues as to why. But again, he's up there battling to the lead. It's no matter how bad you're feeling, it's tough to get out of a car when you're up there racing for the win.
Yeah.
They said they were looking for Scott Pruitt at the track, but they couldn't find him.
Couldn't find Scott Pruitt. Eventually, they did end up finding Boris Said, who... would have been somewhat of a good replacement, although he's much taller than Tony, and he even said himself that he probably wouldn't have run as good in the car just because he wouldn't have fit that well in the car. But he also must have gotten some bad information himself, because the little video they show of him on TV, he thinks that Tony's got not stomach issues, but he's got what the hell does he say?
He said leg cramps.
His legs are cramps, and that's not the issue. That was not the issue whatsoever.
No.
Could be part
they
of
probably
it.
didn't want to tell Boris what was really going on. They didn't.
Yep.
Just in case.
You're never gonna get him in the car if you know what's really happening.
Yeah. I forget who was announcing that day, but they say he's just a little bit loose on the racetrack, and that's one way to put it. At one point, he drops back to 13th, but then within 10 laps is back up in the lead, and then it was around halfway through. He all of a sudden felt better because he shit his pants. That's what it's funny how that works out, how the bubble guts go away when you just let it all out. But from there, he was pretty much good to go. At that point, Ron Fellows, who was driving the DEI #1 car at that point, was making his way up to the front, and this was probably his best chance of winning. So Tony not only had to battle Jeff Gordon for the win, but he was also worrying about Ron Fellows literally up his ass going for the win there.
Yeah, beating, banging, shitting, pissing. Can we name the episode that? Is that something we'll get flagged for?
Yeah.
Imagine being downwind of that car.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, God.
So at this point, Tony makes it through, and as David Land announces, he finished #2 in his pants, but he finished #1 on the track that day. So great quote there. And the post race interview is pretty funny because as you do, he makes it to victory lane, and not too many people are getting close to the car. Like Zipadelli's there, obviously helping him get out of the car, but can't imagine what it smelled like there because, shit in his pants and then it's 100 degrees in the car. Like, that had to be just a nightmare. Like, just trying not to fucking puke the whole time.
Yeah.
So he gets out of the car and he's like, I'll be right back. And thankfully that day, the lower half of his driver's suit was black. So he only got a couple brief shots of Tony getting from the car to a golf cart to get to his trailer or get to his bus.
I wish it was a white suit.
It would have been a much funnier shot for sure if it was all white.
Did they put any newspaper down on that golf cart seat for him, or they just let him? Or does Tony have to buy that golf cart now?
Lay a towel down for him.
But Bill Weber falls over to the bus, waiting for Tony to get back out and do another post-race interview, but he never does. It's just it. Tony's done.
Well, he does reemerge. There is an interview of him where he's completely showered and his hair's wet and nice and combed and all that. It does not look like he just ran a race that he shat himself in. But such a funny moment. But I'll agree, that's definitely probably the hardest he's ever had to work in the car.
Yeah, I mean, you know, for all the jokes we've made about Denny enjoying pissing himself, a lot of drivers apparently do that, and Lewis Hamilton apparently says everybody does that in Formula One.
There's a 2-hour time limit on those races. It's totally unnecessary.
Jesus Christ, guys, do some kegels, do some, you know, work on your bladder or something, man. Like if you can't hold it for 2 hours, you got to go to the doctor. Yeah. But yeah, the last shot that we see is Tony's car in victory lane with nobody anywhere near the driver's seat. Which
there's
is not
a
surprise.
wide berth around that car window.
Yeah. So, you know, not the most, you know, there's not a ton to take from this video. It's just more entertaining to think of that premise. And yeah, Tony, nice little retrospective of a couple Tony things after a pretty hard week for Tony Stewart, I would say, as far as media is concerned. But
for sure, yeah.
Any final thoughts?
Yeah. So for me, this 2004 was when I was in like peak Casey Kane fandom, like Die Hard. That was my boy, and he at this point was still trying to get his first win. And 1 month before this Watkins Glen race, Casey Kane was leading at Chicagoland, and Tony Stewart wrecked him from the lead, and there was like a pit crew fight afterwards. But in this moment in time, I was like full blown in my Tony Stewart hatred from that Casey Kane incident. So I do remember watching this race live and being like so over the moon ecstatic that this man had shit his pants. So.
Yeah, anytime we can talk about that story is a good one. So I'm glad this video made it on here.
Well, moving on from one Tony video segment to not necessarily another, but at least he's tied to this. So, Rob, we already mentioned the Eldora Dream late model race happening this weekend, and I apparently am not as informed about the preludes because I thought this was its own race, and apparently it's not.
Well, it was, but
talk a little more about what it is, because the videos we're going to watch are about the prelude this week. But talk a little bit about the distinction between the two races.
Well, the Dream is the big race. The prelude to the Dream was a charity late model race where NASCAR drivers came over and raced in dirt late models.
Okay.
And it was a pretty cool event. Bill Elliott raced in a couple of them. He did pretty well. Tony Stewart, obviously. Basically, all the big stars of NASCAR would come do this event, and oftentimes it was for a children's hospital. They did like a weird team thing for a little while where they'd have teams of drivers, and each team would be fighting for a particular hospital. So, yeah, cool charity event. It's definitely a shame it doesn't happen anymore.
Yeah, in doing all my research, like there were tons of different like big names, like you know, aside from the ones you mentioned. I mean, Carl Edwards, Juan Pablo Montoya, Ron Capps. Yeah. You know, lots of different people that ran this race, and even I guess 2007, it was a pay-per-view on HBO. Like the whole race is up there, so I'm gonna definitely watch that at some point.
Yeah, it was a cool thing. It was definitely nice to see all those guys kind of out of their element, but most of them anyway.
So I wanted to do two videos about the prelude, even though again it's you know not happening. The Dream is its own thing, but it still, you know, it's late model stuff is cool, and it's stuff we haven't really watched much this season yet. So I got two videos prelude related. One, and we talked about all the different drivers that have run it. And I found a little 10-minute video documenting Robbie Gordon in 2000, either 8 or 9. I can't remember exactly which one, but he's the one. Like I found this little video. It's kind of fan cam style, so I think that'll be interesting. But the other video that I think is probably going to be more interesting is one that is titled, and I'm pulling it up here now because I'm trying to remember what the hell it was called. Where is it here?
Racing Grandma, right?
Racing Grandma at the Prelude to the Dream. I don't know anything about Racing Grandma, but that title alone was like, yep, we're gonna watch that. So those are on the playlist now. Those will be our videos of the week next week, and I know if I don't make it to Eldora this weekend, I'll be very at least watching it somewhere. If I have to get Flow or steal somebody's password, I definitely got to check that out. So those will be the videos next week, and So I don't think are any of us doing any actual on track or going to any tracks this weekend. You know, if I make it to Eldora, that'll be great, but I doubt it'll happen. We'll see.
No.
I am. I have a big weekend ahead.
Really?
Where are you What are you doing?
So my boyfriend has the weekend off. He never gets weekends off during the summer. His work, tour schedule, whatever. So we're gonna go up to Charlotte and we're going to do the Junior Motorsports Tour on Friday and hit up all the race shops because I want to see the new 2311 shop.
Oh, that's right.
And then on Saturday, I'm going to my first Bowman Gray race.
Hell yeah. Cool. That's fucking awesome.
Yeah, so I'm very excited about that. I don't know what all divisions are running, but I do know they're having a chain race that night. So
yes.
Yeah, so we're going to hit up a few museums too, probably RCR and the Petty Museum and some antique malls and stuff, so.
Hell yeah. That's so exciting. I've never been to Bowman Gray, and it's on my bucket list. I'm 99% sure that there's a 100-lap modified feature, so you get to see all the stars of Bowman Gray.
Nice. Yeah, I hope some goofy shit happens.
The chances are pretty decent, so.
Yeah.
Yeah, no racetrack stuff for me. The next time I'll be at the racetrack is when I go up to Loudon in a couple weeks. I'll be there all weekend camping and shit. So I'm kind of saving my money and energy for that because I'm going to spend a lot of it and use a lot of it. So.
Well, NASCAR's in Sonoma this weekend. Let's see how the repave is going to hold up. I know they already had issues with that.
Oh, I forgot about that.
What else is going on this weekend? I mean, I already talked about Eldora. Is IndyCar anywhere? I don't fucking know.
Who knows?
Who knows? There's enough big shit to talk about, so we'll have things to watch.
This will be a dirt late model, at least septic tank next week, almost exclusively.
Yeah.
So.
I think there's an IndyCar race and an F1 race, but I couldn't tell you where.
Well, nobody cares about the F1 race, so fuck that. I guess with that, as always, you can follow us on Instagram at Meet Me at Applebee's and Meet Me at DeBees on Twitter. I am Speedway Screens on all the things. SpeedwayTSJ.etsy.com is the store. Meemaw, what's your plug this week?
It's Meemaw Mountain, True Love.
Meemaw Mountain,
but if anyone lives in the Charlotte or Winston-Salem area and wants to hang out at Bowman Gray on Saturday, hit me up.
Hell yeah. Rob Motes _ unofficial on Instagram. My band's called These Wild Plains, and I completely forgot I actually have a show tonight if you listen to this on release day. We'll be at a place called, I'm going to have to look it up, little acoustic show with our buddy Matt Charette down in Providence at a brand new venue, and it's not coming up. So just go to These Wild Plains on the internet, on Instagram in particular, and you can come watch us play an acoustic set. We'll be debuting some new songs. We haven't done that in a long time, and you get to hear me talk some shit and watch the Dream prelim night on my phone up against the monitor. So. Oh, IndyCar's at Road America this weekend, which again is a huge race. It's one of the biggest events of the year for IndyCar, and the fact that none of us know that is
that's pretty sad.
Pretty sad. So.
Yeah.
It will be a good race, though. I'll say that.
Cool. Well, I probably won't be watching, but maybe I'll have it on at some point. We'll see.
Yeah, we'll have us a little NASCAR IndyCar head-to-head on Big TV this weekend. Sonoma's on Fox and IndyCar's on NBC. So, yeah.
Well,
see how that
I've already
goes.
made my choice.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, folks, with that, looks like the check is here. So thank you once again for joining us at Applebee's, and we will talk to you next week.